Hello, welcome to Inside the Birds Pregame Live, presented by Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort for Inside the Birds. The Eagles are back from their bye week, and we're ready to break down the Super Bowl rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs and our Philadelphia Eagles. I'm former receiver Jason Avant. I am taking over the reins today because Geoff is not here. He lost to me with Michigan versus Penn State, so I'm hosting the show. No, that's not true at all. He just had to take a break today, but I'm here with our usual suspects, as Geoff would say, our main man, Adam Caplan. Adam, say what's up to the people.
Good to see y'all. Yeah, looking forward to this, guys. Really looking forward to this game tonight. We've been waiting all season for this rematch, right?
You're waiting all season for it. Everyone's looking forward to it. And we're also here with our tape breakdown guru, Greg Cosell. The Eagles are 8-1 and have the best record in the National Football League. However, that doesn't stop them from being 2.5-point underdogs for tonight's game in Kansas City. When you really consider the game today, this definitely feels like the Eagles are being disrespected. Geoff, Adam, Greg, what do you guys think about this?
Mr. Caplan, you can answer that one.
Yeah, look, 2.5 points. Okay, so we've been talking about this on Inside the Birds. The question is, do we still look at home field as a 3-point advantage? In this case, I would say yes. The Chiefs obviously have one of the best, if not the best, home fields in the National Football League. But guess what, Jason? They have a head coach who's got the best record on the road of 17-5 since he became the head coach in 2021. Jason, as a former player, could you give us a little bit of an insight how ridiculous that is for a new head coach over 3 years, almost 3 seasons, right? To have the best road record. How does that happen?
Well, he has his guys locked in. He has his guys prepared for it. And I think it's very inspiring because it doesn't happen like this. There's something that he's doing, some formula that he has, but I think it starts with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a guy that's been an underdog most of his career, and I just think that they just take on the mindset of the coach. I can't explain this, Greg. I don't know if anybody can explain this because it's one of those situations that it just doesn't supposed to happen. And I would like to hear Greg's thought about it because I don't see anything different when it comes to their preparation. It's just a mentality.
Yeah, I don't have a brilliant answer. I'd love to ask you, though, Jay, because obviously you played. I would think that the assistant coaches have a lot to do with that. People forget about that, too. Obviously, Nick Sirianni sort of sets the tone. We know that the head coach does that. But on a day-to-day basis, when you're practicing, assistant coaches are really, really important because Sirianni's not coaching every position. He's not involved in every single, teaching element. He's not in every meeting room. Maybe he pops into different rooms and, if he has something to offer, he offers it. But, he's not leading the defensive backs meeting. He's not leading the O-line, meeting. So, I would love to hear you talk about the value. We always look at the head coach, but I think the value of assistant coaches is absolutely critical.
Yeah, you're going to be around. So basically the head coach has so many different roles.
Yeah.
A lot of them when it comes to front office decisions and players, acquisitions, his say is in all of that. So you have to be delegated the responsibility over to your assistant coach. And your assistant coach is the one that's trying to explain to you, hey, it's going to be, you're going to have this amount of time on the play clock when the play comes in. You guys have to get lined up. You're going to be going on silent count. We need to practice with, more crowd noise. And I think a lot of that has to do with the assistant coaches. And like you said, it's a team effort. The head coach and the quarterback will always get the credit. I don't necessarily love that. We need to hear more about the assistant coaches.
But yeah, I think they're probably really, really important. Because we know, I would imagine Sirianni's background is offense, correct? Isn't that his background?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, I would bet that when it comes to Sean Desai and the defense, he might be involved in what he thinks the general approach should be. Hey, do we want to pressure more this game? Do we want to play more coverage this game? Hey, what personnel packages might work best in this game? But once you get beyond that, he's not involved in the specifics and the detail and the nuance of everything that goes on with Sean Desai. There's just not enough time in the day. One other thing, Jay, that you didn't mention is the head coach also has to deal with the owner too during the week. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal, especially here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, so
right?
I mean, that's a big deal. So he can't be involved in everything. He can set the tone, and hey, that's the job. Just like you said, Jay, you're 100% right. It's the head coach and the quarterback that get the credit or the blame, but there's so many other people involved that deserve credit. When a team, everybody says, "Oh, Jalen Hurts is 25-2." Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, it's ridiculously unbelievable. I'm not sure people understand how unbelievable that is. But it's not just Jalen Hurts.
Definitely not just Jalen Hurts. It's definitely a collaborative team effort. For those that are watching the game, please share and like at this moment. If you are watching via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. And for those that are submitting questions, we'll try to get your questions answered during the show. Let's take a big picture look. We're not going to get into the X and O's just yet. But Greg, seems like it's been a while since the Chiefs were known more for their defense than their offense. Like, it's been a long time. I don't know. We can go back to Derek Thomas times, right? So what are you seeing when it comes to tape, very surface level, in the difference between the offense and the defense and why the defense is standing out so much?
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because you could almost make the argument, and I think you can, that over the last 5 games, the defense has carried this team more than the offense. And that would be very, very surprising to many just because they have Patrick Mahomes, who obviously can be special in any game at any moment. But this defense has been really, really good. Just big pictures. They have, and somewhat like the Eagles, they have a ton of depth on the defensive line with a lot of movable pieces, a lot of players that can line up in different spots and be very, very effective. Steve Spagnuolo, again, trying to keep it big picture before we get into more details. He shows you a lot of different things. He's not a high percentage blitzer. He's a selective blitzer, but they're very, very good at it. They're a team that plays a ton of dime with 6 defensive backs. I think it's the second highest percentage in the league, and they have 3 safeties that are really good and somewhat interchangeable. So those are just some of the big picture looks at what they bring to the table, but they've been really, really good this season.
Yeah, it's unheard of for a team that has Patrick Mahomes to be led by their defense 9 games into the season. I never would have fathomed that, but Steve Spagnuolo is definitely doing a great job. Now, Adam, the Eagles, like we said earlier, are 2.5 point favorites, but they have a 1.5 game lead atop the NFC. Right, the Lions are on our heels. They have an easier schedule going forward than us. How important is it for us to remain on top of the NFC at this time?
Yeah, Jason, it's an interesting situation. If we're being honest here, the Lions are probably a little bit better than we expected. They had a tough game. They found a way to come back very late against the Bears, which shows a lot of mental toughness. They're in pretty good shape injury-wise. Look, they're right on the Eagles' heels. Now, I understand this isn't – I get it that it's a non-conference game, but because this is not Major League Baseball where you have 162 games, you've got just 17 games, they all count. And it's not even – yes, you wanted to win your division first. That's first up. But because the Lions are right on their heels, as you said, they only have 2 losses. They're right there, and the Lions playing on Thursday against the Packers for Thanksgiving. As you know, they always play at home. So this is an important game. Now, I'm interested to see what the urgency is here. Yes, the Eagles are the best road team over the last 3 seasons. It's a non-conference game, okay, but it's also a Super Bowl rematch. Nick Sirianni tries to downplay it, Jason, as you know. You've been around coaches. Like for Andy Reid, I know the first time, obviously, they played the Eagles after he got fired. I'm sure that was on his mind to beat them. But you get over it over a series of years. How much do you think, Jason, that loss is going to in the players and coaches' mind tonight?
Oh, it's top. It's top. They've been circling this game all year. And I know it's not the Super Bowl. We know it's not for the championship or the playoffs. And everyone's going to downplay it. But let's get something straight. The Eagles hadn't beat Andy Reid since Andy went to the Chiefs. right? So that's playing on their mind. Jason Kelce came out and said, I at least want to beat him one time. We haven't got a chance to beat him yet. So I want to beat him once. So this team doesn't want to be known as the team that couldn't beat his former coach. And I believe management has something to say, the owner has something to say, and the players have a lot of pride. And they believe that they were the best team last year, but didn't get a chance to win a Super Bowl. Some would say it's because of field conditions or whatever. The Eagles never made any excuses. They said, we'll get you next year. And this is next year. So I believe it's on everyone's mind, the forefront of everyone's mind.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yep. Now, going into this week, we have to talk about the injury report, right?
Yep.
So the Eagles injuries as of today, we know a few of these. IR, nickelback, Avante Maddox, pectoral issue. He's out indefinitely. Nakobe Dean is dealing with a foot injury. That's indefinitely. Justin Evans out for this game. The safety, Justin Evans, out for this game with a knee injury. Quez hadn't been up for most of the year with his hamstring. We know that Dallas Goedert has a broken arm, is going to be out at least for the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. Derek Barnett hadn't played much in general. He's out for personal reasons. There is none that's listed as questionable for this game. A good note for us is that we've been struggling in certain aspects of the offensive line. We're almost complete, or we're complete now with Cam Jurgens being back in the lineup. He's been activated off IR as of Saturday and is expected to be in the lineup tonight. Adam, as far as elevations, we have undrafted free agent Ben Van Smeren. Am I saying that correctly?
Van Sumeren. Yeah, Ben Van Sumeren, who is a special teams demon, super athletic and fast. So he'll take some snaps on special teams. But Jason, here's a couple things here with Goedert with a broken forearm. I've been told, as an absolute fact, he'll be back before the end of the regular season. Now, how about Nick Sirianni in a Saturday press conference? You know, Jason, Nick doesn't like to give timelines on players. We get that. That's the one thing he does not like to speculate. Mm-hmm. But I think it was Zach Berman of The Athletic, or actually whatever he used to be with Athletic. He left there. But anyway, Zach's a beat writer. And Zach, I think, asked the follow-up question, well, the fact that you haven't put him on IR yet, would that be a signal that he could be back sooner rather than later? And Nick actually confirmed that. He goes, yeah, there is a reason why we didn't do that. So IR guys, when you're on injured reserve, you have to miss a minimum of 4 games. Well, the fact that they didn't put him on IR, today was the deadline to have this week count as one of the 4 games. The fact that they didn't put him on IR today would tell me he's got a chance to play within those 4 weeks. Now, it's a broken forearm. It's a broken bone. So the early word is he could be back within 4 to 6 weeks. This is good news. It doesn't mean he will, though. It just means they feel good about the prognosis. It's better than expected. And as we know, there are going to be some backups who are playing and filling in for Goedert today.
Yeah, a broken forearm sounds pretty serious. You just don't want him to hurt it any worse than it already is. But yes, the Eagles are looking at it from an optimistic perspective, thinking that he's going to get out there sooner. And I'm pretty sure there's multiple methods in order to protect it while he's playing.
Yep.
Right. On the other side, the Chiefs' injuries, their IR list is a lot smaller than ours. Nick Bolton, middle linebacker that played an outstanding game last year versus us had wrist surgery. He's out. He's been replaced by Drew Tranquil. We're going to break that down a little bit later in the show. Number 23 Tranquil is out there, which is not the same player as Nick Bolton. Returner Richie James was also out for a while with an MCL injury, but the Chiefs activated him off the IR Saturday. He was replaced by McCole Hardeman when it came to the trade, so we'll see how that's being played out today. Wide receiver Justin Ross is on the commissioner's exempt list because of some ongoing legal issues stemming from an arrest and felony charge in October. He just has 3 catches all season.
Yeah.
So, Adam, anything else about the Chiefs injury situation that needs to be discussed.
Jason, one of the reasons we knew this with the Eagles last year when they had all 22 starters that opened the season in a lineup against Detroit available for the Super Bowl, when you could go through a season and only have one start on IR, and you just mentioned it's Nick Bolton, their middle linebacker, that's really good. And that's part of why teams advance through the season. Now, this year, the Eagles' injury situation is much worse. Both sides of the football have been impacted. Tight end, right guard, nickel corner. The big story today, Jason, we should mention Bradley Roby, who never went on IR, will be available. He's been cleared to play. We all know that it's been an absolute disaster. No team has given up more production to opposing wide receivers than the Eagles in terms of receptions, yards, and touchdowns. They're ranked 32nd.
You're talking about from the slot.
Yeah. No, overall. Actually, touchdowns, overall yardage.
Yeah,
okay. They're ranked 32nd. Greg. Jason, here's my question to you. Players typically get the numbers from the coaching staff, and I guess from the analytical data staff, whatever the case may be. But you're probably going to know this going into a game, and you know what the tape shows you. When you know a team is struggling in a certain area, particularly you're the receiver and you're going against a DB group that's struggling, are you licking your chops like, I cannot wait to get to this game?
Yeah, no one is looking at the Eagles saying, hey, we need to stay away from any of the corners. They're actually going in and saying that, hey, we can throw the ball all over the field against this team. You know, because the reason I say that is because when you have a dynamic player on the other side, you can tell the offensive coordinator's reservation when it comes to his play calling and also where the balls and where the targets are going. You can kind of tell that. You'll glean from that. He'll say, hey, we may try him on a dig pattern, or we may try him on a slant, but we're not going to do anything else over there. So with the Eagles, there's nothing that Patrick Mahomes is second guessing or thinking twice about. That's in a player's mind. That's in a quarterback's mind. If Dion is over there, or Darrelle Revis is over there, Jalen Ramsey's over there, you're not even looking at that guy in a one-on-one situation. You're going to go to the other side. Now the full field is open to Patrick Mahomes because of how bad we play in the secondary.
Ooh, it is what it is, guys. And look, here's the thing, Greg. I remember you were talking on the matchup show a couple years ago about Mahomes when he was struggling, right? They reined things in a little bit, got him accurate, and he got through that. Well, we fast forward to this matchup tonight. You've got the Chiefs offense, which is down in scoring, and you've got an Eagles secondary that's struggling mightily. That, to me, that's obviously one of the key matchups. What could Andy and Matt Nagy dial up, Greg? And you've seen their tape. What do you see what they could expose tonight in the Eagles secondary?
Well, taking what Jay said, I don't think they're going to go into this game with any sense that there's nothing they can't do. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they want to make sure that Mahomes early on gets in some rhythmic feel. That's what they did a couple of years ago when he was struggling. They got him rhythmic. But, you know, I think that they're going to feel, even with their wide receivers, and a lot of people would say they don't have a great wide receiving core, but that they can attack this secondary. And I think you're going to see them do that. You know, just one point about their offense. They run the ball a little more and a little better than people probably think. You know, obviously everybody talks about Mahomes. They're not a running team per se, the way some teams are, but when they run it pretty well. They also line up in multiple tight end sets a lot more than people think. But getting back to the original point, there's no way they're going to go into this game believing that we cannot throw the ball on this team. The number one issue will be protection. You could argue that their interior three are the best part of their O-line and that their tackles are susceptible. I think that's very fair based on film. They have a strong interior three. But Mahomes is also really, really good at avoiding pressure. There's probably no quarterback in the league who's better with his vision on the move than Mahomes. Look, when you play Mahomes, there's really two parts to every play. There's the first 2 to 2.5 seconds in the structure of every play, and then there's what happens after that, which is really, really difficult to defend.
Yeah. And Greg, I totally agree with you. That's Mahomes historically. This year has been a little bit different because last year Mahomes was ranked pretty much, and the Chiefs offense ranked number 1 or 2 in pretty much every points per game, yards per game, passing per game. They're way down this year. Way down. And I think we have a graphic for it, right? They're way down in comparison to last year. Is Mahomes a game manager now? The only difference is that they lost Juju Smith-Schuster. A lot of these guys are back. And from the tape study, what are you seeing, Greg, from last year to this year? Why is there such a stark difference between the production offensively this year and last year?
You know, I think that one of the main things, and it's, Patrick Mahomes has certainly made a career out of being a second reaction improvisational movement player. Mm-hmm. And he's been the best in the league at that, clearly. And I think we've all gotten used to the fact that that's just going to happen automatically on a weekly basis. Now, when that doesn't happen as often, and believe me, it has not happened as often this year, then they don't have as many big plays and they don't score as many points. And that's why tonight's game is going to be interesting. They've now had a bye just like the Eagles. And Andy Reid, I'm sure they have worked on, and Mahomes has talked about this publicly, not in the last week, but I've heard him speak about the fact that it's really important to him to be a structured player who plays the game the right way. And this year, without as many of those unstructured plays happening, they just haven't been able to make as many explosive plays. I think that really showed up against Denver a few weeks ago when he was under duress quite a bit and he moved around and those big plays just didn't happen. And when the big plays didn't happen, their offense got bogged down. And we'll see, it's hard to live off that. That's the thing. And he seemingly has done it so many times over the last couple of years, guys, that we assume that that's just part of their offense, as if it's totally scripted. Now, when I say it's not unscripted, Jay, as you know, obviously when a quarterback moves, there are scramble rules and receivers, have certain things they know to do, but there's still an unscripted nature. Plays aren't called with the idea that, hey, drop back and run around. So there's still an unscripted nature to these kinds of plays, and they don't always work.
Yeah, I have to just jump in there with you. I agree with you totally. Here's the thing that I see when it comes to that concerning the Chiefs and Mahomes is that you have a bunch of young guys that just they don't know how to play the game.
Correct.
The way that Tyreek Hill, a guy that he's been with a long time, Travis Kelce, when he is improvising, they know where to go, how to be, when to break off a route. They know the nuances of the game.
Yep.
Remember, every play is called with an asterisk, right? It's the play, but when it's time to play football, the play is out the window. And you have to have an individual clock with enough experience and knowledge of the system to know when the play should be broken down. I'm 3 steps out of my break. The ball isn't there yet. I'm going into backyard football mode. These guys are still not at that level yet. And so I think that there's just a huge difference between Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyreek Hill, whoever he's had, like more veteran players in comparison to these young guys.
They're also not at the level, and you made a great point about the improvisational element, but they're also not at the level in the structured element. Because Jay, that a lot of times, and I remember having this conversation with Sterling Sharp years ago when he used to beat NFL Films all the time, that even with structured play, sometimes depending on what the coverage is, maybe a route that you're breaking off at 14 yards, you have to break off at 11 yards.
Yes.
And some of these young guys, Rashee Rice, who I think has a lot of ability, but he's a young player, Sky Moore in his second year, who I'm sure fantasy people are disappointed he hasn't come on like many thought he would. These guys, that even within structure, they still don't know exactly how to respond to what they're seeing. And Mahomes is probably very, very aware of that. And that probably makes him move at times when we think he shouldn't move, but he knows that he's not getting the reaction from his receivers that he needs to get.
Yeah, I agree with that totally.
Yeah, and Jay, here's a quick follow-up to that. So knowing all this, right, the Eagles see their offensive tape, and they know what the numbers show them. They're also very inexperienced. Yes, they have Justin Watson, who's a shot play guy. Valdez Scantling occasionally will get the ball downfield. But they're not a dynamic offense. I know they could explode at any time. Would you go more man here? How would you approach it if you're Sean Asai, Jason? How would you approach handling this offense?
I think you play your normal defense, right? And we're gonna get to this a little bit later, but I think that you're going to, run your normal defense. But here's the thing. I would think that Deshaun feels like he can take more chances with this receiver group than he would normally against the Cowboys or whoever else that he's playing. Just because these young guys, though they can run, all of them can run, they don't have the tact, the skillfulness in order to uncover at a high level. And that's what you see. There's times against Greg mentioned this because you have to go back and watch the games. This time versus the Broncos that they were playing, a few weeks ago, where Mahomes, literally, I counted one time, extended the play almost to 7 seconds, and nobody still was open.
Right.
Right. I'm like, dude, you can't. He maneuvered in the pocket. He rolled out to the right, stopped for 1 second, rolled out some more, ended up throwing the ball away. The only person that had a close shot was like Jared McKinney. That was it. Everybody else was covered up. I'm like, that should never happen. If you hold the ball for 6 seconds, you should have somebody to throw the ball to.
I think, Jason, the scramble drill, and you guys are talking about that, that's where not having a veteran, you mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster leaving. I understand he didn't do that well for the Chiefs, but again, you need that established veteran. We know the simpatico that Tyreek Hill had with Mahomes. Asked the Eagles for that 2 years ago where he won for nearly 200 yards.
Yeah.
And now Kelce's that guy, obviously. But I'm just curious because he had the struggling Eagles secondary. Now they get Roby back. That's big. And they're healthier now in the secondary, versus this offense. It's not quite what we expect or what anyone expected with the Chiefs, but it's always capable, but you never know when they're going to break out. And they haven't had that breakout game, and the Eagles are obviously hoping it's not going to be tonight.
Yeah, hopefully it's definitely not tonight. The one thing, here's a guy that absolutely I like. I think Rashee Rice is going to be a good player. Now, once he figures it out, but his yards after the catch, he's unbelievable after the catch. And he gets to full speed in about 2 steps. So I enjoyed watching him this week. A lot of these guys are more gadget players to me. Like, I think Kadarius Toney is a gadget player. I think Sky Moore it doesn't have the tack yet. And I don't understand. MVS just has he has too many drops in critical situations to be relied upon. And I know for a fact Coach Reed doesn't like depending on a guy like that. Coach Reed is one of those coaches that will, if you're dependable, he's going to find a way to get you the ball. And to me, he's like an afterthought. He's just out there more than the other guys, but he's not necessarily they're designing plays for him. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think one thing that, and this is what the tape shows, obviously we know super. I think that when you go back to their last game, which was the game overseas, which they did win, Mahomes was actually 5 for 6 for 71 yards on the first possession, and after that only threw for 114 yards. But I thought watching that tape, and I watched that tape really carefully because I knew it was going to be the last game they played before the Eagles. He's shown this all throughout the year, which is kind of odd. He has a tendency this year to leave throws on the field. He's not taking some defined reads that are clean and there. And that really showed up versus the Dolphins. I think it showed up throughout the season. It showed up when there was a forced fumble late in the third quarter. Chubb had a sack, forced fumble, and that was recovered by the Dolphins. He looked right at Justin Watson on, I believe he ran a dig route and deep dig, and Watson was wide open, and somehow it didn't register to Mahomes, and he just held the ball in the pocket. So there have been stretches this year in which Mahomes has just not turned it loose on throws that you expect that are pretty routine for him, based on his career. And I can't give you the why. That's, but I can just tell you what the tape shows, and I'm sure, Jay, watching the tape, you would agree with me.
No, I definitely agree with you. And here's the thing, from a player's perspective, Greg, in this situation, is that a quarterback is a human being. And a lot of times that's Patrick Mahomes. He's a robot. He does it right every time. Right. He's a human being. And what humans do is that when you have trauma, you have to deal with that trauma, right? So if these guys have failed me multiple times in critical situations, I need to come up with a plan B. And so therefore, you may not read it the same as a quarterback. I'm going to hang on Travis Kelce, a guy that I know is dependable. Yeah. I'm going to hold on for Noah Gray because I know that he's a little bit more dependable. So quarterbacks are guilty of having, past experience that have been traumatic, because the two games that the Chiefs have lost, the receivers have failed like badly, like drop touchdowns, multiple fumbles in that game. Like that's happened. So I believe that can throw off a quarterback's confidence in you, which he doesn't trust what he sees like he normally would.
Jason, I wanted to add what you just said, and Greg talked about in passing. I really believe this is why they started doing it last season. With Tyreek Hill leaving, they went with more 12 and 13 personnel, which we never thought of Andy Reid with 2 or 3 tight ends, particularly 3. But they were up there and that level, and they're doing it again this season. And you guys watch the tape. Noah Gray's a pretty good athlete for the tight end position. Blake Bell's been around forever. When they go 3 tight ends, to me, if they had dependable receivers, this would not be happening. But this is the second season they're doing this, and you guys are kind of saying in passing. There's just something there with the timing, with the pass targets, that Mahomes is not trusting them, or that the coaches aren't feeling confident that they want to get these guys the ball, and they're going with what they know. They've got these tight ends. Noah Gray's kind of come out of nowhere over the last couple of years. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's a pretty good athlete. And Jason, you know it. You played.
No,
when coaches don't trust you, you don't get your number called.
No, it's true. Well, I tell you this: when Andy has 3 receivers, which is something that he loves, when he has 3 guys that we're going to be in 11. And he's going to be an 11. That's just how it is. Yeah. He's going to be an 11 guy. Now, he will adjust it based on, I remember one year where we had a lot of pony package, which was 2 running backs, because we had Westbrook and Buckhalter. We had one year where we did a bunch of that. And it was based off of who you have. So, yes, that's a direct correlation with the confidence that the coach has in the players.
Jay, one thing. Yeah. You've used a term on our show called Know Your Personnel.
KYP.
That to me is the epitome of what Andy's doing here, because you call plays for the guys you trust to get the job consistently. Yes, they had Sky Moore. Now, Rashee Rice has kind of emerged a little bit here, but Sky Moore is not. The other guys have not. Justin Ross, unfortunately, is not available. But I'm just interested to see going forward, obviously, starting tonight. They're coming out, by the way, both teams come out of the bye. Self-scout. We've talked about the self-scout. Jason, what happens, by the way, as a player? Did you ever self-scout yourself during the bye week, or you just wait for the coaches to give you the information?
No, you go back and look over your plays. That usually the coaches, and I've had some really good receiver coaches over the years. David Culley, David every now and again will have a tape prepared for me. Maybe not of the game that we just played, but the games prior to that, and tell me, hey, listen, here's a tape of yourself. Here's your cut-ups, here's all your catches, here's all your targets. And I need you to go and see what you can do better. This is what I think, A, B, and C. Right. So that happens, right? So yes, you go back and you look at yourself, but you go back and clean up the things that you see multiple, like if you've done something twice and you're trying to figure it out, like, hey, this didn't work. How can I do that better? You're just trying to find some type of an advantage. And here's the sense where Coach Reid does with his team. You always have an idea of what type of team that you think you have, and then the bullets start flying, right? The game is on. Yeah. And then you adjust it to what you actually have. And that's what Coach Reid is going to do. Hey, we thought we were going to be an 11 personnel team. It's starting to turn out that we're more of a 12 personnel team. this guy's catching percentage is 75%. This guy's catching percentage is 50%. We're going to allocate the targets for the guy that was getting the 55% catches to the one that's at 75%, right? So you start to see guys' number change and go up, how many times they're going to use them. Like all of those things, okay, we're more successful out of this personnel than this personnel. We're more successful out of this formation than this. Let's run more out of this formation. So they're going back doing all of that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I would just add, and you mentioned Gray, Noah Gray, Adam. I think he's actually a pretty good player. I think he's a pretty good receiver. I remember when he came out of Duke, because I did him coming out of college. He was a pretty good prospect. Just, he didn't have that special trait that you went, wow, this guy's really, really good. But he moves well. And the thing about 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends is Andy's going to want to find out early how the Eagles are going to play that. Because are the Eagles going to play that because of the Kelce factor? Are the Eagles going to play that with base personnel? Let's say they're 5-2 front, or are the Eagles going to play that in nickel? Maybe they could still have a 5-man front. They could go 5-1 nickel if they choose to, obviously, which we've seen a lot. But the first thing Andy Reid is going to want to find out is when he plays with 12 personnel, he's going to want to find out how the Eagles match up personnel-wise. Then the second thing he's going to want to find out, because this team uses a lot of motion. Okay, motion is a major part of what the Chiefs do. He's going to want to find out how the Eagles respond to motion. Some teams, if you're playing zone, some teams, especially if you're playing a quarters structure, okay, a lot of teams don't really have to react to motion. So Andy Reid's going to want to find out how they react to different kinds of motion across the formation, return motion, short burst motion. He's going to want to see how they react to all that, because this team has a lot of success with motion.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how Coach Reid's going to deploy his personnel against this. There's so many areas that they can attack the Eagles, secondary with, and also their defense with, that I'm curious to see, like you said, Greg, tonight, how he's going to deploy those aspects. I want to go back and just get this question asked, for my sake. Adam, we've seen, the Eagles front office try their best to make up for Tyreek Hill's absence, right? They spent, first round pick basically on Kadarius Toney, which was not theirs, but still traded for him. 2 second round picks on Moore and Rice. What do you think of the job that the front office has done in trying to replace Tyreek Hill?
Look, they've tried. They spent 2 second round picks. Obviously, last year on Sky Moore, it hasn't worked to this point. I think you guys make great points. There's just not the simpatico between Mahomes and Moore yet. And Moore, by the way, I'm told, had a very good offseason, but as we keep learning about the offseason, it only means so much. Once you get the regular season, this is the major leagues, and it hasn't happened for him now for 2 straight seasons. And then when you look at Rashee Rice, though, he's come on here. He's done a really nice job. He's been very impactful also in the red zone. So he's come on a little bit. Now, what they want, though, and I think this is what we're getting to, they would like to have a true number one receiver. Yes, Kelce's a number one pass target, but Kelce's also well into his 30s. He can't play forever. So you would want, if you're this front office staff who works with Andy Reid, for the coaches and get the trust of one of these young guys. And it just doesn't happen yet. And that, to me, is something ongoing here for the Chiefs. They've got to figure this out. And I'm convinced, because I remember talking to the Eagles coaches in 2016 and some of the front office people. When Doug Peterson came here in 2016, I said, hey, guys, what do you think they're going to do? Oh, Doug's running Andy's offense. It's 11 personnel. They're spread West Coast. That's what they're going to do. Now, as you said, Jason, though, if he doesn't trust the personnel enough, then you can make changes. Then you go with more 2 tight end sets. But they didn't spend 2 second-round picks for these guys not to be factors. So to answer your question, they have to give them more time. But the biggest disappointment is Sky Moore, because he's a really talented guy. I talked to a lot of receivers coaches before last year's draft. His big thing was playing through contact. He's a pretty strong guy, high-character guy, wants to be taught. But I thought you guys made great points in terms of you got to be on point. The quarterback also has to trust you. And let's call it like it is. I don't know that Mahomes trusts these guys yet, particularly Sky Moore.
Yeah, that's what the tape is. The tape is shown. And I just want to put some stats before you. And I agree with you, Adam. I want to put some stats before you guys, right? So Mahomes is tied for 14th among active quarterbacks with, when it comes to 20-plus yard plays, when it comes to explosive plays, right? Last year, after 9 games, he was rated number 1, right? So this year, he's just not getting that explosive play, and that's why we're talking about the receivers and Travis Kelce. Brock Purdy has more explosive plays than him. Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield, all of these guys have more explosive plays, right? He led the league last year after 9 games with 41 pass plays over 21 yards right now. So now his completion percentage is up, but he's dinking and dunking. And I think that kind of plays into the hands of our defensive coordinator, Sean Desai. So do you think that can affect the game plan a little bit when it comes to play calling for Sean Desai, those stats, Greg?
Well, I'll answer it this way. I think that at some point in every game, you're going to get one-on-one matchups, and receivers have to win sometimes. Jay, you know that. I mean, everything can't be schemed. I mean, obviously, there are coaches who do a phenomenal job with scheming. I think Andy overall does a really good job with think that Patrick Mahomes is real comfortable with these guys winning one-on-one matchups, and Sky Moore, as I would say, up to this point in time, you'd have to say he's been a little bit of a disappointment.
Oh, yeah.
This is his second year in the league. Rashee Rice has actually come on and I would say exceeded Sky Moore in terms of deployment and how he fits into what they want to do. He's a bigger guy, first of all. Sky Moore's a little guy. Now, he's built well, but he's a little guy. So, I don't think they feel really good about one-on-one matchups. Valdez-Scantling, even though he can run fast in a straight line, is not necessarily a guy who's going to win one-on-one. So, unless he just gets on top of you vertically. So they don't really have that. And, and that at some point, no matter how good your quarterback is going to limit your offense because everything cannot be schemed. It's like we talk about quarterbacks that move around. At some point, you're going to have a drop back passing game. And at some point, your quarterback's going to have to throw it from the pocket. Well, at some point, receivers are going to have to line up on corners and win one-on-one.
Yeah, you don't think that this team, with the way that they're structured and the production that they're having, that they should be 7-2. That's just me looking at the tape saying, how are they manufacturing offense? And their
defense is carrying them.
Their defense is carrying them, but I just think that the play calling and also the things that Coach Reed is doing to manufacture some offense has been pretty good. When their usage of screens, their usage of play action, their ability to run the ball a lot better than everyone expects, right? Pacheco runs the ball really, really hard, which tends to lead to play action plays, and it's helping. Even though they're not the 20-plus yard plays, they're still helping, right? So we're going to talk about the secondary a little bit more after we talk about our friends at HelloFresh. Wintertime is approaching, and it gets darker sooner. Everyone's got to get their holiday shopping done. Who has time to plan and make meals? That's why we love HelloFresh. They deliver farm-fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to your doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store, because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't have to waste time researching new recipes and planning out meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive straight to your doorstep every time. It doesn't get more efficient than that. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you'll get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food from meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and those who love variety. They offer great chicken meals, stir-fry meals, shrimp and risotto, and more. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com inactives.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. All right, so let's flip the script. Let's go to the other side of the football. We did not play well in the secondary, Greg, at all. And we were exposed to no end time after time. We allowed CeeDee Lamb look like the second coming of Jerry Rice.
Right? He's looked like that in a lot of games this year.
He has. I believe that CeeDee Lamb is a 100-yard receiver, but I don't think he's a 200-yard receiver, Greg. Right. So
well, I think your point earlier, and again, you and I, and Adam knows this too, we make our points based on tape. We don't make our points based on just general opinion or, I mean, I don't view anything I say as bold or controversial. I say what the tape says. And the reality is the Eagles' corners have not played particularly well this year. The secondary has been a bit of a problem. There have been games where the pass rush has been dominant, and that may have to be the critical piece this evening. But the secondary overall has not played particularly well. Now, Roby is back tonight. We'll see how many snaps he gets. Like I said, we'll see what they decide to do versus 12 and 13 personnel, particularly 12, because obviously Kelce can line up anywhere, as Noah Gray can too, by the way. So we'll see if Roby is in the game, if they go nickel, or if they're going to stay base. But Roby being back is big because he can play slot corner. But the outside corners, Bradberry and Slay, have not had particularly good seasons. And Jay, you started out by saying that no one goes up against this Eagles defense feeling as if they can't work outside and throw the football.
No, that's and usually one side gives you some type of apprehension. That's the way the National Football League is like structured, right? So there's usually one guy outside that can hold up no matter what. And therefore your defensive coordinator can call and help the other guy.
Yeah.
He can make it better for the other guy, right? But the one guy, you have to be able to put him out there and say, you know what, you're going to have to be our guy that we don't have to scheme or worry about anything. And now, with that being said, Darius Slay and James Bradberry had to switch responsibilities later on in that game in order to get the win. Greg, talk about that. That was a different way that they were deployed.
You're talking about in the last game against the Cowboys?
Yeah, the Cowboys. The end of that game, that was something we hadn't seen. We
had not really seen that.
Because Slay said I guess he asked to do it or wanted to do it. I don't know what the tape showed, but anyway, what did you see, Greg?
Well, what happened in that game is Slay, who's predominantly, the left corner, he ended up in that game playing, and I'm just looking so I get it right in terms of my notes. He played 33 snaps against the Cowboys in his usual left corner position and 28 snaps at right corner to match up at times to Lamb. It was the most snaps he played at right corner since the Viking game week 2 when he clearly matched up to Justin Jefferson. So they were searching for a way to stop a really good receiver. Now, obviously, the Chiefs don't have a CeeDee Lamb or a Justin Jefferson, but the larger point is that says that they did not have a whole lot of confidence in Bradberry to be able to line up against a quality receiver on the outside. And I think Jay would agree with this. I think the tape shows you that this year Bradberry has struggled, and he is someone teams are going to go after.
No, Bradberry has been teams are attacking him every week.
Yep.
And the 49ers kind of alluded to it all summer, saying that we had, matchups, and they were talking about Bradberry, right? Yep. In the offseason when they were talking about, we could have beat them, and you heard Brandon Ayuk. And so that kind of set the tone for the year. Not saying that teams listen to that, but no, he was able to play well last year, sit on routes. The pass rush was getting there. And Darius Slay was pretty dominant last year. This year, teams have figured out that, hey, he doesn't have the long speed. And how do you attack a person that doesn't have long speed and doesn't like, being impressed man? I make him run deep, and I also do a bunch of crossing routes against him. And once his confidence is shaken, now the thing that he does good is reading the quarterback and sitting on routes he doesn't want to do that anymore. Now he's a fish out of water because we've taken his strength away from him because we're making him play the position as if he was a man coverage guy, and he's not a man coverage guy. He was built to be in a Sean McDermott style defense, cover 2, cover 4, reading the quarterback's eyes with help over the top.
And
the guy.
But he, it's funny you say that because obviously that's what he did early in his career in Carolina when he was drafted. But what teams will do, and you'll see the Chiefs do it for sure, is if they want to play a quarter structure, the Chiefs will line up in 3-by-1 sets, okay? And they'll put Speed at number 3 or Kelce at number 3, and they make that boundary safety have to respond to number 3. So the boundary corner is essentially playing man-to-man, even if it's a zone quarters coverage. So that boundary corner, and it's not going to be Slay every single time. It's going to be Bradberry sometimes. Now, again, he may have a great night. We know that the Chiefs don't have that one guy that you're going to say, oh, man, that guy, he's just going to kill you. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, it's just perplexing to me. A guy with Bradberry's build and his lack, and I said this on the show a couple of times, but with his build, he's 6'1.5", maybe 6'2", something like that, right? So he's a bigger corner, and with his build and his inability to run, usually those guys are impeccable at the line of scrimmage. Just like that's how it's always been.
Right.
If you are a big dude that doesn't run well, their hands and their feet at the line of scrimmage when it comes to getting the jam, they are so efficient that you can't tell. What brings me to mind is I know he's in prison now, but Brendan Bronner. Brendan Bronner could not run.
Right.
He couldn't get behind him because he used his ability to be big and play physical where you couldn't get a beat on him at times.
Oh, yeah, 6'3", 6'4" is Brown.
Yeah.
Greg, you had mentioned, and Jason said the same thing on his show Q&A about Bradberry. Jason, you've played you played the game for a long time. When you know a guy does not run well, he's starting to lose it, does the coordinator come to you and say, hey, this guy's got a target on his back? Do you say to him, hey, we need to go after? Like, how are those conversations, Jason, leading up to a game when a corner's struggling?
No, you call the plays over there. What happens is that the coordinator starts taking turns on which guy's going to go over there. That's how that goes.
Okay.
Like that's how it goes. Like so, instead of calling the formation to the field, I'm calling the formation to the boundary because the target we want it to be over there, and that's how it happens, right? So if I have an individual route, if I'm going to call 200 jet, double comeback or whatever it is, I'm telling the quarterback, hey, throw it over there to the left side.
Right.
Yeah. If all things are equal, we're going after him, and we're going to make sure that everybody knows that's a leak and that you guys have to plug it up. And Bradberry should have enough pride and professionalism to not want to be the guy that's picked on every single week, because that's the way it's shaping out. And I want to see him, come back from this. But right now, I don't understand how,
and because of everything you're talking about, Jay, he has to play with great technique. And like you look back at the Washington game a few weeks ago when he gave up the McLaurin touchdown, he was in off coverage and his eyes were in the backfield. And for no reason at all. His eyes should never have been in the backfield. And he was still 10 yards off McLaurin. And because his eyes were in the backfield, McLaurin ran right by him. So he has to be really precise and nuanced in every detail of the position right now.
And here's the thing, though, Greg.
You remember that play, Jay, right?
Yeah, I remember. I know exactly what it was. It was the first touchdown pass left side to McLaurin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When it comes to a guy like that, when you're at this stage of your career, you're getting older, you're getting beat. The only thing that you can rely on now is technique. So it doesn't make sense to me at all, because that's where a guy like Bradberry should be the most efficient player. He doesn't have it in his skill set at this time in his career and his age. to be a chance taker and to be a guy that's going to make those mistakes and recover. My coach would always tell us that we're not good enough to make those mistakes, gentlemen.
Right. Right. Jay, let me ask you this follow-up. Okay, so, and you've talked about it on our pregame show over the years when you knew you were starting to, you were up there and it was probably maybe time to start thinking about this might be it or getting closer to it. And it's really for both of you guys. Just grading the tape. Let's be honest here, based solely on tape. Jason, let's start with you. Is Bradberry lost a step?
Yes.
How so? What does it off the line? Is it long speed? How you see it?
I just think that when the Giants got rid of a guy that they paid so much money for and was willing to give him up, right? I think that was the start of it, right? So he was able to be revitalized here with the Eagles. But remember, you may get a year or two trying to figure out, you get a pass rush, you get a bunch of things working in your favor, you can rebound and recover. We had an amazing pass rush last year, a historic pass rush last year that was able to stack the quarterback at a high level. So now what does that do? It puts your cornerbacks right on their toes and they're not backing up. And now I can read the quarterback and I'm not being exposed. But this year they sack them, but there's a lot of times where you have clean pockets. And now you have to be a technician. So yes, he's lost the step. And I think that the step was lost a few years ago, but we were able to match because of how great our pass rush was last year.
Look, one could make the argument contrary to, what has been thought about. And this, people can have different opinions on this. Reasonable people can disagree. But I had a great conversation with a coach before the season, defensive coach, who said that corner is the most important position on defense because you can always scheme pressure, but it's really hard to cover up bad corner play. And now again, some will disagree with that. Some will say it's pressure. Obviously you go back years and years, and Bill Walsh always said one of the most important thing is pressure on the quarterback in the fourth quarter. So you can have a reasonable debate about that. But the bottom line is, Jay just nailed it with what he said about last year. They had an historic pass rush. But going back even to something else Jay said, when Wink Martindale got to the Giants and he wanted to play man coverage, that's when they decided they didn't want to sign Bradberry.
100%. That is absolutely true, Greg. Yeah, in fact, the Texans wanted him because they're under Lovie Smith, because Lovie's his own guy.
He's a cover two guy all the way.
Right, and they just could not agree on a contract. That's where he was going to go. And Geoff Mosher and I, we put it on our show last year that a minimum of two teams told us they were going after Bradberry if they could protect. Guess what? As you said, Jason, they couldn't protect, so they never got Bradberry. Now they're getting him, and here's the thing, as we move forward here, there's nowhere else to go here. Bradberry's making a lot of money. It's all, they're not going to go to Eli Ricks.
I was just going to ask you that about his contract.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But they're not going to one of these undrafted free agents who have been a good story. Job and Ricks have been nice stories, but they're not going to them to be starters. This is what you have. And we saw what happened 2 years ago when John Gannon had to coach to the limitations of Steven Nelson. He did what he could. I give Nelson credit for the Texans, but you don't want to have to coach like that.
Well, you have to coach a certain way.
Right.
Yeah, you're exactly. You're limited. And that's exactly. It's the same way that Coach Reed is limited now with the receivers that he has. Sure. You can tell in the play calling that they're limited.
But I guarantee, Jay, not to interrupt you, but I'm sorry if I did, but even someone like Rashee Rice, as well as I do, okay, that I don't know who the wide receivers coach is for the Chiefs. You may know that. I'm sure you do. But I guarantee all week he's been telling Rashee Rice, hey, you can beat these corners.
It's absolutely.
There's no question they're telling those kids that. You can beat these corners.
Yeah, no, that's everywhere you go. There's like, oh, these guys are beatable,
right?
And this is how this conversation is going for the Chiefs. Offensive line, give us time, we'll win the game.
Yeah.
That's what the conversation is. That's how the conversation is going. Now that's the tough. Now Juwan Taylor and Donovan Smith. That's a whole different subject there.
Yeah, they're beatable.
Talk about that.
Yeah, the interior of that O line is their strength with Humphrey center, really good player. and with Smith and Tooney at guards. But I think Smith at left tackle and Taylor at right tackle, they're beatable players.
And Jason,
go ahead.
I just want to add this, and I hate to bring this up, but it's based on what you guys just talked about. We know that the Eagles felt that they would not say it publicly, but they know the turf was not very good for the Super Bowl. When you talk about those two tackles who were very beatable, the Eagles, they may not have the pass rush of last season, but they still have a pretty good pass rush. That is, to me, where the money could be won tonight. If they could pressure Mahomes, make it throw before he wants to, that's exactly what you're looking for. Sacking Mahomes, he's the hardest quarterback to sack statistically this season, but it doesn't mean you can't pressure him. That's the key, is to get pressure, particularly up the middle, where I get the Chiefs have a great interior, but the Eagles are very talented in the interior with the young kids.
Yeah. So to move on to the nickelbacks, Greg, like the Bradley Roby's coming back. Justin Evans is still out. Kevin Byard, the secondary, it's a new addition. Eli Ricks has been in there. Sidney Brown's been in there. There's been a bunch of turnover when it comes to the nickel position. What do you think the matchup is going to be like with Travis Kelce tonight?
That's a great question. First of all, are they going to play as much man as they played all year? That's the number one question.
Okay.
And we don't know the answer to that. They've obviously had an extra week of preparation. So we may see some different things. We may see some brackets, some doubles in specific situations. I think we will, first of all, because we did see that with CeeDee Lamb. We certainly saw it with Tyreek Hill. I think you're going to see some brackets and some double situationally. But if it's kind of a more normal situation, that's a great question. I mean, could you see some combination coverage where there's some zone and some man in the same coverage? I think you could see that as well, Jay. But, I don't think – look, Kevin Byard, there was a stretch for 2-3 years where I believed, based on tape, he was the best safety in the league. I don't know if he's quite that guy now as far as matching up man-to-man on tight ends. But I think you're going to give that a shot at times in this game, because it's certainly not going to be Reed Blankenship. So the question is, they'll give Byard a shot at times, and they'll see how that goes. The issue becomes when Kelce splits out, because he splits out. He's not just an interior player. And when I mean interior, I don't mean attached to the tackle. He's not just, a flex tight end or number 3 in trips. He'll be the single receiver to the boundary. He'll be number 2 in trips. He'll be a detached receiver. So the question is, if you're playing man there, who's going to match up to him in space?
Yeah, Greg, I've been thinking long at this, trying to figure this out. If we struggle with Ferguson for the Cowboys, we got no shot versus Travis.
But that's why I think it's going to be something different, Jay. They know that too. This is not news to the Eagles.
And it was everybody that they had. It was every linebacker that Ferguson gave work. It was,
and even Byard had a couple
and the safety suit. Yeah. He gave them all work, and Travis can get open on every corner on our team,
right?
And that's including Darius Slay, right? So, with that being said, I don't know the solution. I just hope that part of the plan is to double him in critical situations.
I think they will.
The reason I say critical situations, because you can't have a whole game plan that you're doubling one person. It just throws off the chemistry of the defense. It causes the players to second guess you, because everybody's in different spots, understanding different language and doing different assignments, right? But I think in critical situations, you got to figure out a way to double team.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And it's not in our personnel and our personality type to do what I think works the best. I think what works the best to stop Travis Kelce is to eliminate a pass rusher and cause that pass rusher to his side to jam him. That's the only way I've seen Travis Kelce be mitigated. Now, Tyreek Hill kills you, but it wasn't Travis Kelce.
Right. Well, and the Eagles, again, when you have that extra week and you're playing a special player like Kelce, you wonder if a team steps outside of, let's say, what they've done up to this point, because they've had an extra week. That's what we don't know the answer to.
Yeah, we don't know.
I remember going back a few years when the Bengals in the second half against the Chiefs, had rushed 3 and dropped 8, and they always had the dropper. He would be on the side of Kelce, and when Kelce was lined up closer to the formation, he was used basically to disrupt Kelce's route, and that got Mahomes' eyes off of Kelce. Now, again, that's in the DNA of what the Bengals do under Lou Anarumo. They do that against a lot of teams. That wasn't, it obviously worked against the Chiefs, but they kind of do that. That's not something we've seen the Eagles do. It doesn't seem to be in their DNA. But when you're, like I said, when you're going on the road now, you're playing a special player with a special connection with the quarterback. I don't know if you're talented enough, and I think Jay, you would say they're not, to just line up and play.
No, you can't just line up and play. However, three catches, 14 yards he had a couple weeks ago versus the Dolphins, right? So, Greg, based on the tape, what did the Dolphins do anything special in order to prevent Kelce from having a game that can damage them?
Kelce's had 2 games now where he has not had big numbers, so I'm trying to go back and think, did they do anything special? I'm not sure that they did. I thought in that game Mahomes wasn't very good, but again, I'm just trying to look to see, in my notes,
I know they had him man a few times, and they got called for holding on a few of them.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it was anything special that they did.
They didn't.
I thought they didn't have to do much.
No, they didn't, because I would have made note of that, and they did not. All they did was they played. What they did is they stepped out of their character a little bit, and they played almost all zone and not man. And they came out playing almost all zone. So they stepped out of what they normally do. But they didn't really do anything special with them. In the last 2 games, this pass offense has not really been, quite frankly, it hasn't been very good.
Yeah. So, Adam, Sean, and here it is. So, Sean decides more likely to play big nickel with Brown as a third safety.
Yeah, good.
What do you think as far as that deployment? Brown, the extra safety, Eli Ricks, Roby, interior corners. And that's the question for both of you guys, right?
Yeah,
so I'm just trying to figure out that deployment.
The only thing I would say is this, okay? We know Brown's a rookie, okay?
Okay.
But I will say this. When I studied Brown's tape coming out of Illinois, he matched up man-to-man to tight ends. And that was one of the things he actually did really well. Now, again, Travis Kelce's a different animal, no question. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Sidney Brown's going to match up to Kelce, no problem at all. But I remember watching his tape coming out, and I watched a lot of games, which is what I do when I watch high-level prospects. I'll watch 6, 7, 8 games. And I remember he had a phenomenal game matching up to Sam Laporta. So, again, I don't want people to think, hey, Sidney Brown's going to match up, no big deal. But the point is Brown did that at Illinois, and he did that well.
That's interesting. I didn't know that because we've talked since he was drafted that he's more of a box safety, and I understand that he did have some coverage against tight ends, but that's interesting because, Jason, that what Greg just said would give me a little bit more belief that they could play big nickel. They've done some of this. And unfortunately, Justin Evans isn't available. But, yeah, I mean, now we know that. Why not try it? And, look, we know down the line he's going to be starting. It's probably not going to be this season. But eventually he was drafted to start next to Reed Blankenship. Obviously, Byard is starting the rest of the season. But why not get him involved in it? And the other thing is, he had the hamstring injury. He missed a bunch of games. He's totally over it. He's healthy. And here's another thing. You talked about it. Throwing a couple curveballs or doing something different. Yeah. Here's a way to do it.
Yeah, definitely could do it. Here's the thing that I believe that he's done fairly, I won't say well. He's done okay to be in a situation that he has been in when it comes to nickel play. He's been thrown into the fire. Sidney Brown's ability to cover is there on tape. He doesn't understand the principles of the coverage at times. Go back to the Santana I keep saying Santana, but the Johan Dotson cover 3 seam pass against the Commanders. Go back to Logan, to different plays, you begin to see that, okay, this is just nuance. He can cover, it's just that the details, and he's young. So do I think that a younger player would be able to play a very tactful, one of the all-time best, route runners at the tight end position in the history of the NFL? I think I'm putting my money on the tight end, right? So with that being said, he's a guy that we can use and can deploy, but will he be effective? I think that's a tall ask this game.
Agreed.
All right. So let's keep it moving, and let's hear from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City, the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right. The Eagles, as mentioned, are 3-point road dogs, or 2.5 road dogs, right? Today, with a total of 45.5, according to our friends at MyBookie. Let's consider this. For the first time this year, the Eagles are underdogs, and it comes against their former coach, Andy Reid. The Birds haven't beaten Coach Reid haven't beaten Coach Reid ever.
Yeah.
Right. So let's continue to talk about that. Right. The Chiefs are the NFL's best 66-21 at home since 2013. I can talk about this. Is bananas. Playing there. Like I was with the Eagles, as everyone knows. I went to Carolina, which was a nightmare. And then I went to the Chiefs. And Eagles have more passionate fans, understands things about the game. If the offensive line is playing well, like they're in tune with it. The ladies here understand the game of football. In Arrowhead, they yell at each other about not making enough noise. Right. Yeah. So they feel like they are a part of the game. When you hear about the 12th man and you hear about Seattle and Texas A&M, when you think of that, this is that, but on steroids. So they have a great home record because the fans there are living to affect the football game. And that's kind of the difference between the two cities.
And Jason, again, you have this unique perspective. Like when you were a visiting player and you went into Arrowhead, how did they treat you? Because we know in Philly, they'll get on you, and it's great. That's what we love about here. But they'll get after the opposing players. Did they do that at Kansas City at all when you're a traveling player?
When you're so you're saying the opposing team coming in does the
right? How do they treat the opposing players when they come into Arrowhead? I've not really heard that before. How would the fans get on them, call them names and stuff?
I don't remember being called many names playing there. The only time that I got a chance to play there as an opposing player was a preseason game, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they didn't care about that.
Yeah. Are you suggesting they call them names in Philly, Adam?
What's that?
Are you suggesting they call opposing players names in Philly?
No, not at all.
In Philadelphia.
We asked John T. Filippo, because John grew up here, went to Radnor High, and John obviously coached here. He also was with the team in 2017 when they had a Week 2 game in Kansas City. And he said it's so incredibly loud at Arrowhead. It's really hard. But Jason, you played here in Philly. I can imagine in a play when the fans are all lathered up. I just can't imagine being able to hear. But you also obviously do have a silent count.
You don't in a place like Arrowhead. You don't even consider going your normal cadence. You go silent. You got silent 1. You got silent 2. There's different ways you can like kind of try to keep the crowd out of it, but it's hard. It's hardest for the tackles. The tackles have to go off sound or go off timing, right? So because it's hard for them to see it's hard for them to see through the guard. So they're going off movement or a rhythm. They may get in silent. Okay, once I see the tap, I got to count 1 second after the tap. So they have their little system on how to get off the ball. So it makes the game really, really tough for them.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah. Let's hear from our friends at My Bookie. All right. Skip the arguments with Uncle Dave on Thanksgiving and focus on what really matters. Good food, boosted odds, and hitting those Turkey Day parlays. Picture this, not just watching games, but turning every second into a potential win with My Bookie. You can stream the games and live bet them and turn any game day into a payday. Ready to up your game? Sign up today and make your first deposit with promo code TheBirds for a sweet deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's promo code TheBirds to claim your bonus. This isn't just a promo code, it's your secret weapon to get the extra edge on the house. The best part is you don't need to be a sports whiz to win My Bookie. You can cash in on everything, from politics to your favorite shows and then some. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with My Bookie. All right, Adam, this is for you. Let's talk about just the landscape of the NFL right now. I want to get your thoughts when it comes to this. There's a lot of hot topics around the NFL. There's multiple teams that are playing multiple quarterbacks now. Talk about the NFL and the landscape as of now.
Yeah, Jason. That's really what I want to talk about tonight. We do this usually around mid-show, a little bit after every week now, and it's just awful. By the time we get started this week on Thursday, there'll have been 50 quarterbacks who've taken a snap from center of the season. That's ridiculous. There's going to be probably 15 teams that have changed quarterbacks due to injury. We're talking about starting quarterbacks due to injury or performance. And what I really think is it comes down to the NFL's inability to develop the quarterback position because they don't have a farm system like we used to have NFL Europe. Remember Kurt Warner, Jake Delhomme developed there. We don't have that right now. Maybe someday USFL and now they've combined with the XFL. Maybe someday the NFL will get a relationship, Jason, with that league. But it's a problem. There's just not enough good quarterbacks to go around. I mean, I give Tommy DeVito all the credit in the world. Somehow he got sacked 9 times and they still won. But he's really seen as a third-string quarterback. Yeah. And some people would say he probably should just be on a practice squad. The bottom line is, Jason, when we go forward here, the league's got to look at this. They've got to be honest with themselves. This is not a good way to go about to the quarterback position. They're doing all they can to protect the position, obviously, with the rule changes. But they've got to do a better job of developing them. Because Jason, as a player, after the lockout in 11, practice time got cut down, way down. You don't have the time in the spring and OTAs to develop these quarterbacks as you'd like. Or in training camp, that's why Nick Sirianni, the Eagles head coach, has a developmental period after practice for about an hour with position coaches, which is very valuable. It's a problem. I mean, it's a real problem. And why do you think Matt Barkley? Why do you think Matt Barkley, Jason's still in the league? He's now backing up Tommy DeVito because there's nobody else. There's
nobody else. Yeah, and I think I'll talk about this. I just think that it's. I think it doesn't start with the NFL. I think it starts with college, and I just believe that the college coaches have figured out a way to win without developing quarterbacks. You can run around a lot more, you can scan, read, you can cheat the game, but the NFL you can't cheat the game. And therefore you have a bunch of guys that are undeveloped. And I think Greg can talk about this better than both of us when it comes to this. And Greg, what do you see about the development of the quarterback and how these guys, you guys realize that guys like Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Roethlisberger and Aaron Rodgers, they're playing into their 40s now because of the lack of quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a number of reasons, but there's always exceptions too. I mean, someone like C.J. Stroud is really, really refined and advanced. You're always going to get certain guys like that. But I think your point about the college game is correct. First of all, you don't have a lot of time to teach the quarterback position. You know, I was very fortunate really smart people taught me the position, and it's ultimately a detailed, nuanced, subtle position. It's a disciplined craft. And I mean, just to give you an example, and he may be an extreme one, but I'm watching Zach Wilson, not this week, and we know he got benched and now he's number 3, and he may be an extreme example, but it makes my point. I'm watching him last week, okay? I forget who they played last week.
Raiders?
Raiders, yeah.
Yeah.
And the first play of the game, okay? He wants to throw a quick slant to Garrett Wilson. He ends up completing it, okay, for a first down. But a quick slant is 3-step drop timing. Well, he takes 5-step drop, okay? I mean, that's inexcusable. You know, I mean, at this point, you know, that kind of stuff's inexcusable. Now, he ended up getting it in there, and then they got a first down. He almost got Wilson killed, however, and Jay knows about that if your quarterback's late on certain throws. But the point is, you know, you see a lot of that now because Jay's right. In the college game, it's the way it's set up. The hash marks are different. There's a lot of easier throws. A lot of quarterbacks growing up now, it's 7-on-7. They're always in the gun. Their footwork doesn't really have to be taught with the precision and detail that's necessary to play at the NFL level, snap after snap after snap. So you get a lot of quarterbacks that do come into the league and they can't really execute basic concepts. And, you know, to start from scratch at the NFL level, and again, sometimes you have to do that, but that's not really the way coaches want to go about it. You know, I remember when Bryce Petty, you may all remember Bryce Petty coming out of Baylor, put up huge numbers in that offense. I think it was Art Briles. It was the air raid offense or a version of it. And I remember him in an interview, you know, he basically said, I don't know what a 3-step drop is. I don't know what a 5-step drop is. I mean, you know, these are things that if, you know, a lot of college quarterbacks coming into the league, they've not really taught that and the footwork that goes with that. And so, you know, you get a lot of guys that just can't execute the basic foundations of an NFL pass game.
Greg, look at Malik Willis last year and this year. Look how far, because when I saw him at the Senior Bowl, I saw a guy run around and throw the ball downfield, but you didn't see the pocket movement, the just be able to manipulate the pocket and just make the routine pass. This plays for both of your guys' points. When these young kids come to the NFL, there's so much they don't know because
and Adam, you know,
they haven't been taught.
People have decided, and I have these conversations a lot. People have decided that having a gun for an arm and being able to run fast are high-level quarterback traits. They're not. I mean, sure, is it nice to have a good arm? Is it nice to be a good athlete? Of course, it's better than the opposite. But just those two traits don't mean you're a high-level quarterback prospect.
Right. Yeah, I agree. One thing that we're going to do before we get to the Chiefs defense and the Eagles offense is we got to talk about losing Dallas Goedert. We lost Dallas Goedert to the fractured arm, and we have to think about the possibilities of his replacements. We have Jack Stoll, we have Grant Calcaterra, we have Albert O, Adam, Greg. You guys chime in there. What do you guys think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, Albert O, and we'll obviously get Greg's comments from the tape, but Albert O is an athlete that he's just not much of an inline blocker. Remember, they gave up, guys. They gave up draft competition to bring this guy in. Here's an opportunity to use him. And he'll be the third tight end until Goedert returns. And then obviously he would be inactive. They don't usually you're not going to keep 4 tight ends active. But the bottom line is they've been through this last year. Remember when Goedert got hurt against Washington? It wasn't pretty. They had a couple games where they would ever manipulate and get the guys the ball a little bit from the line of scrimmage. But it's going to be hard. It's just not the same thing. Goddard's a two-way player. He can block in line. He can move. It's just a really good football player, top 5, top 7 tight end, and it's going to be a problem. Now, as we move forward to this matchup tonight, I'll be interested without Goedert in the lineup. How does Spags play them, guys? That, to me, Greg, I think is something I look forward to seeing tonight.
Well, 2 points to make. Number one, I'm curious to see Albert O because I remember doing him coming out of college, and he's an athletic receiver. You're right. He's not an inline physical blocker. If they feel they need that, Jack Stoll will play. But Albert O is an athletic guy. He's been now with the Eagles for, Adam, how long? 6-7 weeks?
Actually, no, since they traded for him around the start of the season.
Okay, so he's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to assume he's going to get some snaps. And, he's a guy that can detach and he can run. So I'm curious to see if he becomes part of the passing game. The other point is one thing that Steve Spagnuolo absolutely believes in, and it's going to be very interesting tonight, is he believes in press coverage. Okay, he doesn't want to give receivers free access off the ball because with all these timing passing games, of which the Eagles are very good, and particularly with RPO concepts as well, he just does not want to give receivers free access into their routes because you can't get to the quarterback. So who do you have to disrupt? You have to disrupt receivers. We know A.J. Brown is a man's man, and he's very physical. So I'm very curious to see how Ladarius Sneed, who plays now on the outside all the time, no longer goes in the slot. McDuffie is the slot corner when they go nickel and dime. In base, McDuffie and Sneed play on the outside. McDuffie is a very physical guy. I love McDuffie. But when they play nickel or dime, Jalen Watson is predominantly the other outside corner, and he's a big physical guy. Now, he can be beaten, but he's a big physical guy. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to seeing is because they're going to play press. He's not going to back. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean 100% of the time. I don't want people to think, because nothing happens 100%. Sure. But, Spagnuolo's belief is that I'm not giving these guys free access off the ball just to run their routes.
Yeah, and he allows the players to play within their comfort zone, and Ladarius Sneed he loves to be up in your face. Yeah. And I'm going to mention this about the tight ends, but I want to keep that thought going about Ladarius Sneed is that he pressed Tyreek Hill, he pressed Justin Jefferson, he's going to press A.J. Brown.
Yep.
Oh boy. That'd be interesting.
That's going to happen. I want to let everybody know that here.
It's coming
tonight on this show. That's
by the way,
happen. And I think it's one of the more interesting matchups of the day.
So will McDuffie in base because McDuffie is a physical guy. I remember watching him coming out of UW. Really physical, tough kid. He's played really well. One reason they moved him into the slot is because of the physicality, because he can blitz and he's physical and competitive playing the run. So, he's another tough guy. So that's just a matchup to watch. I'm not picking sides here. I'm just saying this is a matchup to watch. A.J. Brown's a great player. A.J. Brown could go off and catch 170 yards of receiving tonight, but it's going to be a fun one to watch.
It definitely will be. As far as how to replace Dallas Goedert, my thoughts would be to not worry about the tight end position at all. We already have a usage problem. Devontae Smith needs his targets. Yep. A.J. Brown needs his targets. And I believe that the Eagles will be more effective if they gave the targets that were allotted to Dallas Goedert to the running game. That's just my perspective on it. I think that you have enough guys outside that can get the ball. I think that you need to focus on staying true to who you are as a team, and that's giving it over to the run game. The reason the Eagles were one of the top teams last year is because they were able to run the ball at will, and I don't think that they can this year. So I think they have to get back to those.
I will say one thing, and maybe you know this, Adam. This is your area, not mine.
Yeah, sure.
What is Jalen Hurts' knee situation? Because if you go back to the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles ran 44 plays in the first half. They controlled the ball for almost 22 minutes. I'm speaking in the first half. Okay, Hurts had 10 designed runs in the first half alone.
Wow.
52 yards. Okay.
Wow.
So that was a big factor in the game in the Super Bowl. And again, I don't know where his knee stands. You obviously know better than I do. Yeah. But if that can be a factor in the game, then that's a factor.
All right. So Greg, he did confirm to the media when he was asked about it. He did not wear the sleeve during practice last week. The bye did him well. So that's a good thing. And look, their RPO calls are way down this year compared to last season. Greg, let me ask you, and Jason obviously chime in, do you think it's injury related? I know there's no way to know that for sure, but just based on tape study, it's just kind of odd. But we said this, Greg, I think we talked about this in the New England game the first week. Hurts did not look explosive, but he wasn't hurt then.
Right.
I don't know what I'm kind of baffled at why the numbers are down with the RPOs. It's hard to understand.
Jay, you can answer.
Yeah, to me, I just think that it has to do with more the end goal. That's what I think, and that's just me. That's just the sense of what I have, and the reason that the sense that I have that is because the way Jalen Hurts went into the season, being a little bit cautious when it comes to running the football, new contract. understanding that he can affect the game with his brain and also his ability to throw the ball a little bit better than he did last year, right? So I just think that it's been more of a collaborative effort to keep him healthy for the playoffs. I think that there's a time and a place to do what we're asking Jalen Hurts to do. I'm saying allocate the game so the Dallas Goedert's targets to the run game, meaning DeAndre Swift runs it. They believe there's a time and a place where to deploy Jalen Hurts, but I don't think that it's necessarily the regular season. I just think that when it's clutch moments, then Jalen Hurts can run. And I think that it's been more of a decision based organizationally rather than just Jalen Hurts not running.
I think that's probably fair. A couple of other points, if I could, regarding this matchup. Is that all right? Can we go?
Well, we're about to get right into that.
Okay.
Right into that for as far as like the defensive side of the ball, Greg, and I'll let you take it over. I just want to ask you this question before we get into that. It's not no. We talked about that earlier today. Sorry, I got off script there for a second. Get back.
Do we want to get into the?
We need to get into the Chiefs defense versus the Eagles.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go.
We're on the, but do you want to get into the blitz tendencies and
yeah. So the Eagles will have to find creative ways to move the ball. The Chiefs are ranked number 2 when it comes to scoring defense that allows 16 points a game. Amazing. I believe we have a graphic that shows that coordinator Steve Spagnuolo is the defensive coordinator. They're ranked 2nd in points a game, 4th in yards per game, 5th in passing. They're 2nd when it comes to sack per pass. Like they're really well-rounded defense, and we're going to have a problem with like figuring out ways to move the ball. Greg, what do you think in your assessment?
Well, I was just a couple of things that stand out. Just with what some of the things they did in the Super Bowl. It's the same defensive coordinator, obviously, different offensive coordinator in Philly, but still same. A lot of it'll be the same in terms of how they view the Chiefs players. One thing the Eagles did last year, which pretty much every team does, but the Eagles did in the Super Bowl, is they predominantly slid their pass protection to Chris Jones when he was lined up at D tackle. And they took Jones out of the game, but teams have done that, and Spags has done a really good job this year of countering that, of understanding how to deal with that when teams slide to Chris Jones. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. The other thing is they, as I mentioned earlier, and I can expound on it a little, they play dime, I think the 2nd highest percentage in the league, which means 6 defensive backs, and they play 3 safeties. Close to 30% of their defensive snaps come out of dime. So they have 3 safeties that are somewhat interchangeable. Normally, Justin Reed is the tight end matchup when they play man. Whether that's a big factor tonight because of the Eagles tight end situation, we don't know the answer to that. But when they have Justin Reed, they have Brian Cook, they have Mike Edwards. They're all really, really good players. And as I said, they're somewhat interchangeable. They did spy on Hurts last year in the Super Bowl, depending on specific situations. Now, Bolton was the spy last year. He's obviously out. I remember thinking when they signed Drew Tranquill, I thought to myself, why would Tranquill sign with this team? They got Bolton and Gay, and this guy was a really good player for the Chargers. Why is he signing with the Chiefs? And boy, are they lucky they signed him because he's a good football player. And he's very good against the pass, and he's a good blitzer. So, it's worked out for them. But they're very interchangeable up front as well. They've got 4 or 5 guys that can line up all across the front. Jones can, Omenahu can, Dana can. I'm missing someone. Karlaftis can. They've got 4 or 5 guys that can line up all across the front, and that's what they do.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. And the thing that I believe that they do just as well as any team in this league is exotic blitzing and disguising. That's what makes their team special. Is literally, I've seen plays where the free safety, the guy that's supposed to be in the middle of the field when the ball is snapped, he was at the line of scrimmage. And he was able to get back and be in coverage, and they do a great job of bringing people toward the line of scrimmage, and then you have to play the game on who's coming and who isn't. And I think
it's hard, right? That's got to be hard.
It's very hard. It's very hard to he does a good job of trying to confuse quarterbacks. And Jalen Hurts has shown this year that he can be confused when it comes to defenses that disguise as much as the Chiefs disguise. We go back to the Jets game, go back to a few other games with Jalen Hurts looking confused, the New England game early in the season, right? These games, the defensive coordinator was able to confuse Jalen Hurts, and this is the type of defense that can confuse him. So it's I'm looking forward to the matchup to see if he can get Jalen Hurts or not, or see if Jalen Hurts can get the best of a long-time defense coordinator.
And this may be a game where Hurts' legs are important because the Chiefs are going to create pressure. They're going to create pressure with 5-man rushes. They're a zero blitz team at times, depending on down and distance and field location. Hurts made some big plays in the Super Bowl with his legs last year when he was able to beat pressure by moving. We've talked about Goedert. Goedert was a big factor in that Super Bowl, so obviously they don't have him in tonight's game, but I'll be very curious to see how Jalen reacts to the pressure, because it is going to come, and Jay's 100% right. Spags is really good with disguise, late rotation, and selective pressure, and it's really good, a lot of the pressure concepts that Spags has.
Yeah, here is something, Greg, and I want to see if you agree with me on this. This is one of those games, and the games that the Chiefs, because of all of the pressure, what Jalen Hurts has a tendency to do is to leave the middle of the field and to do more one-on-one outside the numbers.
Yeah.
And because of that, and because they can play man and they can get in these exotic pressures where a guy's running to the middle of the field late, and I don't necessarily know if they'll do that because of the potency of our receivers, but L'Jarius Sneed's going to be in a one-on-one. McDuffie's going to be in a one-on-one. I think we're going to see a high number of forget the game plan, I'm throwing this go ball up outside in a one-on-one situation. I think that could be the case. Huh?
Because what happens a lot, and I've noticed this with a lot of quarterbacks, is when the middle of the field gets muddied, a lot of quarterbacks do one of two things, depending on who they are and what they have at receiver, is they work outside the numbers or they throw checkdowns because the middle of the field gets muddied and they just don't feel comfortable with what they're seeing. And sometimes quarterbacks run. If they have running ability, they might drop it and run. So I agree with Jay 100%. I think the middle of the field at times will be muddied. It won't present a clear picture. And without a Goedert who can be a safety valve guy and figure it out, you might see Jalen just work outside, check it down, or leave the pocket, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, but I definitely can see Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown with multiple down the field targets in one-on-one situations.
Yeah.
And it's not because they just decided to go number one. I just think it's going to be because the defense is so confused.
Jason, we got the inactives. We'll go real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep. Tanner McKee, the Eagles, Tanner McKee, Rashad Penny. Sorry, he's not active tonight. Moro Jomo, Suapeta, who had started, obviously, before they made a change. Suapeta's an active guy, of course, who's hurt, and Derek Barnett, for personal reasons, he was active. He was actually downgraded to out over the weekend, so they only have 6 inactives. And then Richie James, it's really interesting. They activated Richie James, the Chiefs did, off of IR on Saturday, and he had been their primary returner. He's inactive tonight. So Mecole Hardman, who's had some ball security problems, by the way. Dave Tobe, who's their special teams coach, remember, he used to be here in Philly. He started here in 2001. Tobe said, no, we're gonna stick for the time being with Mecole Hardman, so he will do that tonight for the Chiefs.
Who's the Chiefs inactives? You got those as well, or just the?
Yeah. There's no the only name of note was Richie James, but if you want to, we can go over those very quickly. The Chiefs inactives: Richie James, B.J. Thompson, who's a DN. Neil Farrell, Greg, I know you liked him. You remember?
I did. I liked him coming out of LSU, and he started with the Raiders, and I guess they cut him, and he's ended up.
They traded him. Actually, traded him to the Chiefs.
Traded him, okay.
Yeah, and a kid named Mike Caliendo, not Frank, Mike Caliendo, and I'm not familiar with him. And Malik Herring. So no one of note.
Herring has played for them over the years.
Who's that?
Herring has played for them over the years.
He's a healthy.
They're very deep on their defensive front. Very deep.
He's a healthy inactive. And with Wharton back, Wharton, remember, towards ACL, and he's come back well from it.
Yeah.
But again, to get this far, guys, you got to be healthy. It's hard to be this good this late. And let's not forget week 1, who didn't play. Remember, Chris Jones was not with the football team.
Mm-hmm.
You know about Kelce's injury? That was a big reason why they lost to the Lions. Despite their low scoring, they're still really, really, really well coached. And there's a reason why most people still think that they'll somehow get back to the Super Bowl. It won't be easy for either team, but they're so well coached, and they're very evenly matched, as the lines makers only giving the Chiefs a 2.5-point favorite tonight.
Yeah. Greg, when it comes to the Chiefs defense, like they have, superior pass rushers when it comes to Chris Jones, Karlaftis, Dana, these guys. One way that I think that you can keep these guys at bay is do what Denver did. Denver was successful with it. Javonte Williams, 150-something odd yards of rushing. So do you think the Eagles will go out of character within the last 6 ball games, and have a higher number of passes? You already said that they're in dime, personnel.
Yeah, well, they do that more on third, and not only on third, because obviously with the amount they play it.
Yeah,
interesting question, because Williams is a totally different kind of back than the Eagles.
Well, he's a special back. Watching him, he was so patient.
Yeah, and he's so powerful.
Yeah,
Swift. We all like Swift, but he's not Williams stylistically at all.
Mm-hmm.
Williams is the kind of back that it can be blocked for 3 and he drives through for 7.
Mm-hmm.
Swift is not necessarily that guy. Yeah, I've been thinking about that, all day today in terms of how I think the Eagles will play offense. And just being honest, I don't have a brilliant answer. I mean, I think they have to run the ball to some degree. What that means in terms of volume, guys, I don't know. But I think they have to have, I hate the word balance because, it's not so much balance in the sense it has to be 50-50, but I think the run game matters. And I think it matters tonight. So whatever that means, much of it depends on how a game plays out. You go into a game with a certain approach and game plan, and then sometimes things change a little bit and the flow of the game changes. Sure. Jay, this, the flow of the game changes. And all of a sudden you think, okay, well, we just have to make a little adjustment here. And so, I'm very curious to see how the first 2-3 possessions are for each team.
Yeah. I think I'm curious to see that how Spagnuolo is going to play A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
Right. I think that in and of itself and how much respect he gives them will determine the win or not. Right. Because there's times where this team, like you said, Greg, can get up in 0, 3rd down, man. And there's a few things that the Eagles don't necessarily have in their game plan that I think that's in their game plan they haven't deployed this year is swing screens.
Yeah.
The Broncos and a few other teams was able to get them on their 3rd down when their man percentage is up higher, crossing and making their underneath coverage go through a lot of bodies, different things like that. But I'm curious to see how they're going to play Devontae and A.J. Brown. Yeah. And if I think that they're going to play them the way that I think as far as leaving them on islands one-on-one because they have faith in Trent McDuffie, they have faith in L'Jarius Sneed, I just think it comes down to who's the better athletes and who the better players are. I think even though that the Chiefs are playing at a great level, I think our players are superior when it comes to those two matchups.
I agree. Let me throw one more at you guys. Definitely want both of your opinions on this. Julio Jones is on this roster. There's a reason why they signed him. There's no Dallas Goedert. From your tape study, Jason, let's start with you. Can Julio still play? Can he run? If he can, he's 6'2.5". You know the way he's built. If Spags is going to press as much as he can, wouldn't you want to have Julio Jones out there, guys? I mean, what are your thoughts, Jason, on that?
Well, Julio still can run.
Okay.
That's the one thing I can say about him, that he still can run. Remember, you get labeled because your production goes down in this league. If your production drops off and you're a certain age, you're going to get labeled that you're losing a step. That's just how this league is. That's how it always has been. Do I think that Julio is the same player? No, we wouldn't be able to have him on our roster if he was the same player.
That's true.
Right.
That's right.
So he's definitely not the same player, but he has a lot of value. And we've seen that with touchdown catches. We've seen that in the blocking game. We've seen that. Could his numbers go up? Yes, his numbers could go up. And do I think that he will be used outside based on what I've seen? I think they'll use him more inside. And so can he be a factor in the bye week? He has multiple weeks with the team now, has more time to learn the plays because of the bye week. Do I think that his role can increase with no Quez Watkins, a guy that they clearly don't trust in Lamade Zaccheaus for some reason because they brought in Julio Jones, right? So I believe that if anybody will see some usage increases, will be Julio Jones. So that's the way I view it from that perspective.
Look for it tonight.
Yeah, let's look for it. Hopefully we're talking about him as the hero tonight.
Oh, that would be fascinating. That would be fascinating. Is that a
little foreshadowing of your player of the game, Jay?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's too strong. Oh. Can you imagine, like Julio, who almost crushed the Eagles in 2017? How ironic would that be if he hit the game winner? But we'll see what happens.
All right, we're going to talk about the Eagles defense just in 1 second, but let's hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars with the voice of the Eagles, Merrill Reese.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, you guys. We want to talk about our friends, our production team, our buddies. James and Zach are behind the wheels again, bringing Inside the Birds pregame live to you in high definition with new graphic, videos, and more. We just want to thank them for all the work that they do behind the scenes with a great production. Make sure you guys check them out. Let's get back to attacking the Chiefs. Defense, Swifties in the house? No, I don't think she's in the house tonight, right?
No, she's
on
not.
Tour.
I think she's still in South America, so I'm not going to watch.
Yeah, she's still in South America. But however, DeAndre Swift. How much of DeAndre Swift will we see tonight? Week 11, but Swift has 17 carries. He's 17 carries shy of setting a new record for rushing attempts and just 4 rushing yards shy of his career best, right? I could have butchered that. But yeah.
Well,
so he also has just 220 yards from his second 1,000 total yard season. Right now, he's on pace for 1,160 yards. What do you guys think about DeAndre Swift?
I like the usage. It's a little bit higher than I expected. He's averaging about 17 touches a game, but Greg talked about it. He's really not a power back. That's why we thought the Rashad Penny signing guys was good. But he had a poor training camp. Coaches clearly don't trust him. As we've always learned, usage will tell you how the coaches feel about the particular player. The guy can't even be active. And when he's been active, it's only because Boston Scott was unable to play. So, look, the bottom line is Swift's been a great story. Gainwell has his role, no question. But to me, get Swift involved, Jason. You just talked about it, the screen game, certain plays outside formation. Where we saw in training camp, Jason, Swift was so dynamic in the pass game. Yeah, the running back targets are up this season, but I'm looking for explosive plays downfield. I seem to say this every week. It's the one issue that I have is that they've not got Swift downfield. I'd like to see that a little bit more vertically.
They've taken some shots but missed. And yeah, here's the thing. Like I said, we have an embarrassment of riches on the outside. and we can't keep enough guys happy out there. When it comes to Dallas,
True. Yeah.
Devontae, and AJ, it's like, which one of those guys will I take away a target from in order to get DeAndre Swift the ball? So we don't have Goedert now, so there could be another way to get the ball down the field to him. And I think you have to commit as a coach and say, hey, if we're going to get man coverage, and we know Swift runs that 4-4, if we can get him on Tranquil out in coverage, if we can get him on Willie Gay out in coverage, we'll take that matchup. So I just think that you have to be intentional about it. I don't think that the Eagles have been intentional about getting him the ball down the field.
I would agree.
Yep.
And just a total aside, one player we didn't mention on the Chiefs, because talking about Swift made me think of him, is Jerick McKinnon is a really important factor for them on third down. Just wanted to get that name out there. Just and reminded me of that when we were talking about Swift in the pass game.
Yeah, he still has three passing touchdowns, right? 3 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah. And
last year, guys, he had, I think, 10 total, and he crushed teams inside the red zone. He was their red zone running back.
Yeah, he was really good.
It's really amazing. Good. I don't know where they came up with that, but Greg, you just said, he was really good at it. And look, the Eagles have done their best that they can with, remember, Nick Morrow, we should mention Nick Morrow starting tonight. It's been a nice story with Cunningham. They've not done well against tight ends. That running backs haven't crushed them in the pass game like I thought they would. But Greg, I'm so glad you brought up McKinnon. He's a guy who can. He's a smaller guy, but he's got good quicks. Watch for that tonight.
He's a great receiver.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll try to get him matched on Cunningham if they can.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can. Our guys are not covering the best. So, like I said, McKinnon is definitely a problem for our team, to say the least. Now, the NFL's 17th ranked rushing defense. If they have a weakness, if this defense have a weakness, we praise them and talked about how great they are in the secondary and the skies and coverage and their defensive line. If they have a weakness, Greg, is going to be in the run game. And let's see if the Eagles can figure out a way to take advantage of that.
Which is really interesting given the talent that they have, but they have struggled at times this year.
Yeah. Now, so we're going to wrap this show up, but before we wrap the show up, we have to talk about our friends at PHL Sports. Okay, let us talk about our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So be sure to check out PHLSportsNation.com. Again, PHLSportsNation.com, and also at PHL Sports Nation on Twitter. PHL Sports Nation. Check them out. For the fan, by the fan. All right, let's get into our player predictions and all of those things. It's time to wrap up the show. All right, you guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Players to watch this game. Who do you think your player of the game will be? Let's start with Adam.
All right, I'm going to surprise you here. You touched on it, and I took this one from John DiFilippo. John said to me when he was doing our show recently for Patreon, he goes, listen, I want to make sure I talk about this. This is what I would do if I was coaching with the Eagles and Goedert was out. I get DeAndre Swift the ball a ton in the pass game. Jason, you talked about it. Getting running backs on linebackers is old school. That's typically the way that you win. With Swift's explosiveness out of the backfield, we know what he could do in between the tackles. He's got good quicks, really good second level runner. Now with Jurgens back, obviously the running game should be better, but I want to see him finally use a little bit more downfield vertically, as I said earlier. I'm going to shock the world. I've not picked him to be the player of the game. I wish I would have done it against Minnesota. I digress. But I'm going to stick with Swift. I'm going to shock y'all. I'm going to pick DeAndre Swift tonight.
Oh, man. I like it, though. I like the mindset behind it. Like you said, we just talked about them being the 17th ranked rushing defense, and if they have some weakness, I believe that could be their weakness. Yep. Our friend Jeff is not here, and his player of the game is Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith. I like that as well. Greg, what about you, your player of the game?
Because he's coming off 2 games in which he did not do very much, and they've had the bye week, I'm actually going to pick Travis Kelce. I think he's a tough matchup for the Eagles, and it would not surprise me to see him be involved early and often. to help Mahomes sort of get back on track. So I'm going to pick Travis Kelce.
Greg, great minds think alike, because my player of the game is Travis Kelce as well. I don't think we have a chance in the world to cover him today.
You should be honest. I mean,
yeah, that's the one player I don't think we got a chance to cover on their team, and I believe that Mahomes knows that based on what he's seen on tape. And you add the old ball coach, the redhead fellow over there, I think it's going to be a problem.
And Tom Melvin, remember Tom Melvin?
Oh yeah,
I know Tom.
Coach.
Yeah.
He still coaching over there with Andy.
Yeah, I know Tom.
All right. So the Eagles spread 2.5. The total is 45.5. And the money line is -150. Now, Greg chooses for the game, chooses the Eagles 26 to Chiefs 21.
That's Jeff. Yeah, Jeff.
That's Jeff.
Oh, Jeff.
Yeah.
I said Greg. Sorry about that. Jeff chooses the Eagles 26 to 21.
What a score. What an odds. Where is he?
Yeah.
He always does this with these odd scores. 26-21. Okay.
26 to 21.
He gets 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, that could happen.
Yeah.
Right.
They got the butt kicker, Harrison Butt.
Adam, what do you think the score is?
Yeah, I've got it. I got it. Eagles 27, Chiefs 24. So now it's probably a little bit high, and in the rain, the latest forecast hour by hour has a rain really lightening up during the game. It should be a light rain if it rains at all. I'm probably a little bit high on my score. The Eagles are so good on the road. I know Andy Reid is unbelievable to buy, best in NFL history. It's not like they've never lost coming out of the bye. We need to make that point. I just believe in the staff. They're coming out of the bye. It's not going to be easy. Bradley Roby coming back, I think, is also big. Let's not underestimate that. I know, boy, if they would have had Goedert, I would feel a little bit better about it. But I haven't picked against the Eagles, and I don't know how long, and I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to stick with the Eagles 27-24.
So we got Adam and Jeff, Eagles 27-24, Adam 27-24, Jeff 26-21. Greg, what sayest thou?
I believe I picked the Chiefs 30-27.
Correct.
That's correct.
Right.
And this was one of those games, I really didn't have a strong feeling one way or the other. I just didn't know. So I just went Chiefs 30-27. Maybe it's being an Arrowhead. I know I've been there years ago. I know how loud it is. It's a tough place to play. I imagine they'll be pretty fired up tonight, Super Bowl rematch. So those are my really hardcore tactical reasons
there you go.
for picking the Chiefs 30-27.
All right, Jay, what do you got?
My pick is with Greg. I got the Eagles losing 27-26. The Eagles hadn't beat Coach Reid. I don't think that it happens tonight because of Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. I also think that Spagnuolo's defense is legit, and they're holding teams to 16 points a game. I don't think that they'll hold the Eagles to that, but I don't think the Eagles will have enough to muster up 27 points today. So with a heavy heart, I believe the Chiefs will win this football game. I want the Eagles to win. I'm still rooting for the Eagles, but I think the Chiefs will win this game.
All right.
That's where I am. All right, we got to give a big thanks to all of our friends, Oceans Casino Resort, My Bookie, Sky Motor Cars, PHL Sports Nation, James and Zach, and thank you all for joining the Eagles pregame live Inside the Birds show. Make sure that you guys check out today's coverage immediately after game, Inside the Birds post-game show live with Adam and myself and Clay Harbor. Make sure that you guys check out insidethebirds.com. Email your questions to insidethebirds@gmail.com. I am Jason Avant, along with Greg Cosell, Adam Caplan, and Geoff Mosher, even though he's not here. Thank you guys for watching, again, the Inside the Birds pregame live show. You guys enjoy the game.